my questions are questions for staff, and I'm going to ask them. Can the DEA still raid the city?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I understand it's a state, the state voted for it. I truly understand it. I understand the medical need for patients in need. I truly do. The question is not that. The question is this a business that can be placed in the city somewhere where it's not going to be near churches, schools, and that's the dilemma that this council has, because we only have two major streets in this community. One industrial area that has many churches in it. So where do you put the dispensary? I think Palm Springs has taken great strides. They have a large city and many places that they can put this dispensary. I'm still doing research. I think you did what you were asked to do. You brought 3 ordinances, one to ban Palm Springs and another one. I'm not a professional to go through and pick out each whereas or therefore. But I think the job's done, and now we have to sit and do our own studying as counselors and decide in February or before whether this is going to be a business in the city of Desert Hot Springs.
I think we'll have to make the decision probably in December
Well,
because of this, because of the first and second reading. But, Councilman Schmidt?
I'd just like to clarify what we're supposed to wind up doing here tonight.
Madam Mayor, I would suggest that it would help us, staff and council, if you were to give direction of a ban, a Palm Springs type ordinance, or the do-nothing approach. So,
But when this comes to the council, what are our choices going to be? Those 3?
well, at that point, we would draft the ordinances for you, and then you would take whatever seems to be a consensus. We'd write that ordinance, and then you either adopt that one or you start amending it to make the changes that the council can come to agreement on. So I guess what would help us would be for you to say whether you want to ban the do-nothing, leave the ordinance, leave it as is, or have a Palm Springs or a West Hollywood. And I think they're both very similar in the sense that they allow them, they just allow them under different circumstances. So it's do nothing, leave the zoning code as it is, ban it, or allow it under certain terms and conditions.
So in a sense, we are voting tonight.
You're giving direction.
And developing consensus.
Yeah, and consensus, yeah, it would be, yeah, you're right.
Call it what you will.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be clever, but I just ran
Did you
out.
say Mark had a map?
Mark, do you have a map?
As far as we're going to go without actually saying what we want to do. You want me to say what I want to do?
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I was reading the hybrid section, number 4.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared to make a speech, so I'll just say it quickly, and I'm for a ban.
Did you say you're in favor of the ban?
Yes.
Councilman Betts?
I don't have any comment.
Okay, for those, I think the thing,
Just a map.
Here's the map.
okay, and we wanted to look at the map for areas
Commercial
of,
areas are red and pinkish colors, and the industrial are the dark purples and lighter purplish pink areas. And this shows both the city areas and sphere areas, so where the city boundaries will point it out for you.
okay, where does the city boundaries,
This black line here,
okay, so there's very little purple in this,
right, we have a small part of light industrial over by Little Morongo, and then the rest of the industrial area is in the county area, which generally matches with the county's current industrial land use designated areas. And then the commercials up and down Palm, as you all know, and only a couple spots along Pearson.
Okay, all of you have the October 14th staff report in your packet. Item number 4 is the hybrid approach. And that is that the city may choose to adopt a zoning regulation as described in more detail, permitting cooperatives and collectives as contemplated by the Compassionate Use Act and medical marijuana program, and adopt an ordinance banning storefront medical marijuana dispensaries. Under this option, the city would regulate the location, operation, and secondary negative impacts of cooperatives and collectives envisioned by the state medical marijuana laws, while prohibiting the operation of storefront medical marijuana dispensaries.
You're right, and asking for additional comments on that. And basically, this approach would be something that is part Palm Springs, part West Hollywood, and incorporating the Attorney General's guidelines as well. Recently, as you all know, and you had a copy of the Attorney General guidelines, they provide.
Would this require policing that we don't have? You know, take away an officer, let's say, from the residential area and put them down in the industrial area to make sure that what they're doing down there is within the law and within the ordinance and within the conditional use permit. You can always put and have an ordinance. The problem is compliance. And that's going to require observing, policing, and that kind of thing. You know, once something is open, whether or not they are going to comply with the ordinance as written. So that's probably mostly my concern is the policing of it. Would you like to step in and have a few words on this?
At the council's disposal, with all due regard to Mr. Baker's eloquent comments as it relates to this issue, not that I'm aware of a shark having any natural predators. I do want to add something that the lawyer did say. That was a joke. Did you get that?
Yes.
There's not just anecdotal evidence of secondary criminal impacts of these enterprises. There's factual basis, and we're happy to provide that ad nauseum. And that wasn't our intention tonight. And as I talked with council in preparation for this, it was, as we took it out of the last meeting, here's a ban, here's a Palm Springs, here's another version of a use with more tighter controls, which is the West Hollywood example. The challenges for us, we're coming off of, as recent as 2006, 2 counties, 48 cities under 100,000, having the highest crime rate per capita. And that's not by chance. It's because of the challenges this community faces. There's plenty of compelling arguments in support of the Compassionate Use Act as it relates to those that have specific needs that need relief, and that the potential for this venue providing that. I have to say, as the police chief, the secondary impacts that we potentially could face will hamper our ability to continue the good work we've been doing to this point. Through August of this year, 2008 over 2007, Part 1 crimes are down about 18%. I know we've shared this information, and I expect September to be about the same. I'm not going to say that we're going to get overrun overnight, but there's plenty of information through CalChiefs, California Police Chiefs Association, spent a lot of time looking to see. There isn't an agency in the state of California that, at some level or another, that's responded to council initiative to look at the data and the challenges that these uses can potentially impact. We're a small shop, and there's plenty of big shops that have said we can't handle the load and the impact of these. There's been robberies, businesses themselves, and the dispensaries. There's been robberies of customers coming to and from. There's been burglaries of businesses and themselves. Increased traffic and loitering in around these uses because the community that comes to participate and use use the facilities. There's been secondary impacts as relates to those who may not wait to get home to use that which they've been given. The way the AG's opinion, although they're recommending the 8 ounces of dried product and X amount of mature and X amount of immature plants, a doctor can essentially write for any amount that they feel that a patient needs. It could be more. And the gentleman's absolutely right. If you're using 8 ounces, you can't, if for medicinal purposes, 8 ounces in a week, you're doing something more with it. And I think the balance and the challenge council has is trying to recognize those very specific, targeted, focused issues for those that need this and use it appropriately for the intended use versus another audience that doesn't share those needs or uses and uses this for criminal purposes. I have information I'm happy to share at the next council venue. The U.S. Attorney estimates that 90% of all of these quote-unquote not-for-profit cooperatives are for-profit businesses. That's a problem. When this product has a resale value in the market, depending on what the level and grade of it is, those are secondary uses that you and I cannot control, and it will be impacted with it. So I'm not going to weigh in on does it make sense, doesn't make sense for the patient piece. My focus for this community and what I've been charged to do is give you the best advice as a law enforcement professional, say, hey, there's going to be uses that we cannot foresee right now that will impact us, and there's historical data on the record from other communities that have been adversely impacted by it. And I would just urge you to consider that as you weigh these deliberations. If you go down the path of allowing these types of uses, I would be pointing you towards the West Hollywood model versus the Palm Springs model. Quite frankly, the Palm Springs model is shallow in regulatory considerations when you put it against the West Hollywood. The West Hollywood.
Can you speak up? We can't hear you.
The West Hollywood. It'll be available on DVD shortly following it tonight. In all respect and due consideration of our friends in Palm Springs, the regulatory scheme as proposed by the Palm Springs ordinance pales in comparison to the West Hollywood experience. And if you look at some of the things that West Hollywood went to a great extent to consider neighborhood impacts, consider specific places where it could go. They limited the number of dispensaries in the community. They required on-site security within 2 blocks of the establishment to keep those that don't need it, those that quote-unquote they're taking advantage of the system, not hanging around the loiterers. They also required on-site, basically customer service that they would provide to neighbors and to city officials, that there's a person during business hours available as an ombudsman to mitigate any potential issues. So I would just offer that there's 2 very different opportunities that legal counsel has provided to you on the allowing cooperatives to exist. And if you go down that path, I would be pointing you more in the direction of the West Hollywood example. But I would say, as it relates to the public safety piece and the challenges we have, the ban from a police perspective eliminates challenges that we won't have to face of the use of these cooperatives. That's strictly from a policing perspective.
I'm ready to make a motion, if you like it. Madam Mayor, may I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Since I was the one who spoke out. My main concern is the potential crime involvement, and exactly as the chief had to say. I have compassion for the folks who need it, and I'm thinking that if Palm Springs passes their ordinance, I know that 10 miles is 10 miles, but perhaps these folks here could go ahead and go to Palm Springs. I just don't think that the city can afford the possibilities that Chief Williams has mentioned. You know, we have our problems now. And if there's any potential for this, and apparently there is, for crime increase, that's my reason. So it's not that I'm a cold-hearted person. I've been around this sort of thing, so I have a feel for it. Thank you.
Councilman Baker?
Madam Chairman, I move that staff be directed to, recognizing attachment 3, which is the report on medical marijuana dispensaries. I move that staff be directed to come back to us with something that would conform to item 1, which is take no action, and something that would conform to item 4, which is the hybrid approach, with definite emphasis on the West Hollywood requirements. Now, if there's a second, then I'll explain some further processes.
I'll second.
Okay, I need a little discussion on the ramifications of taking no action. Then when they come to planning, then it's gonna be up to planning to, to say yay, nay, or whatever, and they don't have any guidelines before them to make a decision, basically.
That is correct. There is a provision in our zoning ordinance that allows the director of community development to make a finding of similar use. So when an application for this particular type of an establishment would be received by the city, the director may, look through the statutory requirements and see if there could be made a similar use type of finding to let this type of a land use, or like medical marijuana collective, to locate. But that may be hard to do and may result in inconsistent applications. So technically, the zoning ordinance is silent with respect to medical marijuana collectives and cooperatives.
Would you be willing to amend to not the take no action, but either item 3 or 4?
I'd like to offer an amendment that consideration of item 2 and item 3 be included in staff's work and what they bring to the council.
I'll second that.
Well, let me,
You want all of them?
Want staff to come forward with all 4 options, yes.
if I might, Madam Mayor, Palm Springs, the status of their ordinance at this point in time is that the council has weighed in with the idea that they want something to happen. It has now, as I think as Mr. Swedlow indicated, going to the Planning Commission, although they do have and have had for some time a committee of citizens. I would speak against us doing all of this, because if we follow the same tack and have staff come back with a hybrid approach, it would need to go to Planning Commission. Planning Commission could, and rightfully so, I think include all of the items that are listed on page 2 and 3, which are conditions of approval, A through L, that's 13. Every one of them is something that has been brought up, and that's the schools, liquor stores, other things. My concern, if the council would rather do it that way, it would be to change my motion to items 3 and 4. However, there is another motion on the floor.
Okay, you've got a motion on the floor, your original motion.
Yeah, that's right. But Russ has got an amendment and a second.
Well, I think that my amendment went first.
Oh, maybe yours, yeah, you did request, ask if I would.
Madam Chair, you made I believe you made a motion for an amendment, but I didn't hear a second. We have a motion and a second on the floor, and that motion is that to amend Councilmember Baker's original motion, that staff research items 1, 2, 3, 4, and bring those all back to the council as options.
Oh, Al, you seconded?
I'll second it.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, this may offer some guidance and clarification between the options 2 and 4.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor to the amended motion for the staff to come back with an ordinance relative to 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Not a single ordinance, but information on each
Yeah,
one of
so
these.
we've got the information. So what you're wanting is basically an ordinance to,
That would adopt each.
that we would adopt under each of these 4 criteria.
That's right.
And how would that compare with Mr. Baker's motion?
Mr. Baker's motion would be number 1 and number 4,
Which are what?
which are take no action or go the hybrid approach, hopefully based on the West Hollywood criteria.
Well, I'm going to withdraw my second because my vote is going to be for a ban anyway, so.
Okay, I don't think you can,
Well,
Doesn't matter, let's vote it.
okay, we've got the motion on the floor. I've called the question. All those in favor, aye.
aye.
All those against,
No.
no.
Now, Madam Mayor.
Al,
So you just,
are you for that?
No.
No,
No.
okay. So the motion fails.
Now, I will amend my motion if it pleases the chair, that the 2 things that we want to look at are item number 3 and item number 4. Item number 3 being whatever legislation is necessary to totally ban pot sales, marijuana sales, medicinal marijuana, whatever you want to say, in the city. Or item number 4, which is identified in the staff report as hybrid approach, but I want to make sure that in the hybrid approach, not for profit is emphasized, that it is co-op. I would like to see that it is in the industrial area, and I thought that our request for a map would show radiuses of 1,000 feet, as was originally, we discussed last week. But that's, I'm getting carried away. So the motion basically is that staff be directed to come back with a specific action for either item 3 or item 4.
And